Hi folks, and welcome to another guide. In today's guide, what we're going to be doing is looking at morale and manpower. Now, the way it works, and I'm just going to kind of throw this up here, and I'm going to get rid of my units here so you can see it. The calculation for morale is basically the addition of production and these green morale centers here, if you want to call them, these urban centers that have the green circle associated with them. So if you're adding 40 plus 25 and 40, you're going to get your 70 here. If you're adding all of these green circles, the 25 and the 40, the 55555, you're going to end up getting the UK morale value of 100, and you can count those up yourself and add them up yourself. So this is equal to 100 when you add up all the green circles, the brown circles, and the gray circles or black circles. I don't know what color that is. So that's the idea of how morale, the value of morale, is calculated and thrown on here. Now, the reason why I did this video is there were a lot of questions that appeared on the Matrix forum with regard to morale and manpower, and how morale impacts manpower. So I'm hoping this video will actually help with that. Now, when you take a look at manpower, the 100 that you see here has been set by the scenario itself. So I'm going to move to the UK, and I changed that value here so that you can see an actual calculation. So moving to the next turn here, and again getting rid of my units here, you can see the starting manpower for the UK is 150. I'm not going to talk about production in oil because it appeared in another guide here. What I want to just talk about is how morale impacts manpower from a country. Now, the rule is very straightforward and simple. As you're conquering a country, you're dropping their morale and it's impacting their manpower. How does this actually work? What's the mechanism behind it? How do they actually work out the calculations themselves? Well, the calculations themselves are based off of a ratio. So recall again, you're going to have to remember these numbers. So if you recall, the morale is 100 for the UK. That's the morale itself. And the starting manpower is 150. So when you take a look at this from the point of view of manpower to morale, so, and again, I'll wait for the calculations for this. So let's move forward here and see what happens. So it's the German turn, and the German moves forward and captures these two green circled hexes here. Now, when I look at morale here, it hasn't dropped because you won't see it until the UK turn. But now, when I go forward, and by the way, I should check this first, right? The German manpower will not increase when you captured these things. So those green circles that you've captured hasn't increased your manpower. Your stockpiles increase because it started off at 850. Every turn you're going to get 100 manpower. Your upkeep is if your units are damaged or whatever, you're going to need to replenish those units, and that's where your upkeep for your manpower comes up from. But I've captured 10 of these green circles here. 5 and 5 is 10. How does it actually impact morale? Well, you won't see the impact until you move to the next turn. When I take a look at morale within the UK country here, so let's take a look at it. Now you can see the morale of the country itself has dropped 10. It used to be 100, now it's 90. So that's basically subtracting 10. That mathematics is pretty straightforward and simple. When you take a look at the actual manpower, the manpower has dropped down to 135. So that was a drop of 15. Well, it's pretty straightforward and simple if you understand that it's dealing with ratios here. So if you recall, the original manpower, so this is the manpower here, so this is the manpower, it was 150. And the original morale was 100. So that's morale. So the ratio of this, when you go to look at this, and just to break it down for you, that's really 3 to 2. That's the ratio. So when you captured 2 of these green ones here, you actually captured 10 of them. Well, if you're looking at a ratio here, that translates to, well, if you're multiplying this side by 5, you're going to multiply this side by 5. It results in 15 manpower. So if you're dropping 10 morale, you're going to end up dropping with the same ratio 3 to 2 here, 15 manpower points. So that's how these things are actually calculated. So that's where you turn around and see that the UK has lost 15 man points out of all of this. Now, when I'm looking at it from the point of view, and maybe what I should have did was add another 5 so you can see the calculations again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to capture 2 5s and the 40 here so that I can do the calculations again for you, just so that you can see how this works. So I'm going to move to the next turn here. Now remember, Germany captured these two. There's no impact on their manpower. There's no impact on their morale. That has not changed. Only the UK's morale. So in essence, what ends up happening is you are bringing the morale of the country you're attacking down so that eventually it will surrender. Now the United Kingdom, when you take a look at this, there's not another bracket here with a number. So this has to drop down to 0 before you conquer it. So that's what I'm going to have to do. I'm going to have to actually conquer it. But before I do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to capture these 2 5s here, and I'm going to turn around and I'm going to capture that 40. So that's a drop of 60 now. So 5 5, 40. That's actually a drop of 50 now. I wish I could count. So again, when I'm looking at this, that was a 5, and a 40. So that should be a drop of 50 in the morale category for the next turn. So looking at that, and actually I'm going to go a little bit further here, and I'm going to capture 60, so my calculations are a lot easier. So I decided to do that instead. Let's go and look at the next turn. Remember, I captured 60 of these things. I was at 90, so if I subtract 60 from the 90, I'm getting the 30 that I require. Now, when I'm going to my ratio, remember my ratio from manpower to morale was 3 to 2. So if I'm dropping 60 morale out of all of this, I'm really multiplying this by 30. So that would result in a drop of 90 of my manpower. That's what it should be. So if you recall, the manpower was at 135 in the last example. So if I'm subtracting 90 from it, I'm going to end up with a remaining manpower of 45. So when I take a look, and I can see that the manpower turns out to be 45, as expected. Now, as I mentioned before, UK is a country in which that I have to capture its capital and reduce its morale down to 0 here. So I'm going to turn around and I'm going to capture its capital and this particular hex. And I'm just going to show you how I'm going to do this. So I'm going to do that there. I'm going to bring this guy forward and up there. And now I'm going to attack this capital here. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to attack with air. Now, at this point in time, it's in mission only mode. I have a lot of air units here, and I want to reduce the attack strength, or I should say the defense strength, of this particular unit. To do that, the first air attack that I perform could damage the strength of the unit. So when I take a look at this from a point of view of a ground strike, I have hit it through 4 points out of it. So I've reduced the 3 to a 2 here, so you can see that, and that's the average strength. That's what it really looks at. So I've actually did damage to the strength itself. But now when I continue to attack, what ends up happening is I'm no longer attacking the strength of the unit. What I'm doing is I'm reducing its effectiveness, which does impact its overall average strength. And remember, the average is the attack value and the defense value averaged out. That's the idea behind it. So I can keep attacking it here, and you can see here it really doesn't show anything. You see the zeros there because it's not reducing in strength. Now that I've got this down to a 1 and I've got a bunch of my units already, I take one of my air units and I place it on full support mode. So now I take these 3 units, I hit the control key. Again, you could also hit shift and it'll do it automatically. The estimated odds turns out to be 5 to 1. I'm going to attack, and notice here the unit actually held. So when I go look at the land combat here, I did have 4-to-1 odds here, but you can see this unit here, that unit there, is the air unit that participated in the helping of the actual attack. And it did damage, but it did hold. So I'm going to have to perform another attack here to actually clear that unit. I'm going to hold the control key this time. The odds are much better. And bye-bye, it's gone. I've captured the capital now. Now, until the next turn here, and notice my air unit did support a second time out of all of it. So you can see again the support of my air unit does show up, and the fleet had to retreat because I captured the port that it was in. So that flees. When I move to the next turn, you can see, well, there was only 2 countries there. The game is over, but you can see too that the country has now surrendered because I've dropped its morale value, and I've captured its capital, and I've captured all its resources. So the goal when you're trying to conquer a country is to capture its production, which is the brown and the black circles, and also the green morale sources for their centers. That's the idea behind it. Hopefully this video has helped you understand better how manpower impacts morale and how the calculations are done within the game itself. I tried to pick simple values here to make it a little bit easier, and I hope you enjoyed the video. You take care and have yourself a great evening. Bye now.